Hello, everyone, and welcome to EduMatch. So follow along with us at tinyurl.com/tweettalk67, as well as on Twitter with the hashtag EduMatch. Speaking of EduMatch, did you want to be the person of the day? If so, sign up at our website, edumatch.org, and we can help you build your PLN and make all kinds of great connections all around the world. So just wanted to give a huge shout out to the Powering Up with Technology conference put on by my team, Prince George's County Public Schools yesterday. It was an awesome event. So just wanted to definitely acknowledge our keynote speaker, Rafrance Davis, who drove home her message about connecting. Also our featured speaker, Tom Mulaney, EdTech Tom. Awesome guy. So tonight we are going to be talking about personalized literacy instruction. And we have a phenomenal panel for you guys. So we're just going to go ahead and introduce ourselves, going from my left to my right. So we'll start first with Daniel.
And CEO of Books That Grow, which is a platform for inclusive instruction focused on middle and high school classrooms. So with Books That Grow, a teacher can assign one text to the class and challenge each student at their own individual literacy level. How? The materials adapt to the students. So we don't have just news articles on Books That Grow. We have fiction, nonfiction, primary sources, a wide range of very rigorous materials that align with core instruction. And so our vision for Books That Grow is to help teachers promote inclusion. So whether you have students who may be struggling readers, second language learners, special needs students with specific reading and learning disabilities, those students can read and learn alongside their peers and still have access to grade level instruction without at the same time sacrificing rigor, because the materials adapt to the student's reading ability. So that's what we do, and very happy to be here today.
Awesome. Welcome. We're very happy to have you here. So we'll go next to Kate.
Okay, I think, am I unmuted? Okay, I couldn't figure out where the controls were. Hi, everybody, I'm Kate. I'm a science teacher in New York State. I teach grades 7 through 12, and I teach content, mostly informational content. So I'm dealing with a different kind of literacy instruction, I suppose. I've been looking for different ways to differentiate my reading for this year. I found a few different resources that I'm going to share with you guys. And I'm just still always looking for more things that I can do to meet my kids where they're at and help them grow in their reading.
Okay. Awesome. We are so happy to have you back. So welcome to the both of you. This is going to be a great discussion. I just wanted to take a second to thank Susie Hiley for the questions for tonight. She contributed them today. So we'll go ahead and start with the very first question about what are the best ways to personalize literacy content for students outside of using an LMS? So would love to hear more about, let's start with Daniel about Books That Grow. So how can that help to personalize literacy content for students?
So I guess personalizing literacy content can mean a lot of things, but from our personalizing means, a couple of things. One, you want content that is interesting and engaging to that student, but you also want content that is accessible, that is at a level that all the students can read and comprehend. And so I'll just give you an example with what that means with Books That Grow. I just turned on screen sharing. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So let's just say, for example, I used to teach middle school language arts and social studies. Let's say we're having a discussion about the Declaration of Independence. Now, for some of my students, this is going to be incredibly daunting. With Books That Grow, this same text is available in 3 to 5 different reading levels. So now there may be a student who's in my class, maybe they just immigrated, or for some reason they're reading at a 3rd grade level, but they're in my 8th or 9th grade class. They have access to the same ideas, the same text, just at a modified level, as we see here. And then the teacher can easily differentiate. So the teacher could just, select a student, and they could, on the fly, change the reading level for any particular student. They can also decide whether or not the student can increase or decrease the level of difficulty. Anyway, there's much more we could do. There's much more that we can do. Let me stop screen sharing. But I just wanted to just kind of give you a sense of how we help with differentiated literacy instruction.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yes.
Fantastic. All right. And how about you, Kate? What are the best ways to personalize literacy content for you?
Well, I found a few different resources that I was going to share with you, but I'm having some technical difficulties right now. One of them is CK12, which is a website that you can find basically free online textbook materials for a variety of subjects. I wish I could maybe, let me see if the screen share is going to work. Let's see, my entire screen share. Can you see my screen at all?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't see it though, so I'm gonna stop sharing. All right, yeah, I don't know what happened. I can't get back to my other browsers, but anyway, so there's CK12, and then I found News ELA, which you can select the literacy levels that you want the kids to be reading at, and you can print off different news articles on a variety of science topics. There's history and English, economics, all sorts of that different stuff. But you can print the news articles out in the different literacy levels, and then it also has questions, like reading comprehension questions that go along with it. So I've used those, and I like those a lot. There was another one, shoot, what was I going to show you? Science News for Kids. That has a variety of reading levels, though I don't think you can select the literacy level, but maybe it goes more by grade level. So those are the things that I've been using. Another thing that I found that I wanted to include in my classroom this year is using graphic novels for reading. I don't know, I'm sure you guys are familiar with that. I don't know if some of our viewers are though, but graphic novels are basically another way of describing comic books. But there has been an explosion of graphic novels into education because it makes reading fun, and there's usually a lot of very colorful, happening images that go along with the reading. So it really pulls the kids in, and it breaks the material down into manageable chunks, whereas instead of reading, 5 or 6 paragraphs about, say, the rock cycle or the way volcanoes erupt or different kinds of volcanoes, you can look at one of these graphic novels and get the same idea, all the main concepts, but in a manageable chunk for kids who need help with reading. Well, that's me.
Great, awesome. So those were some great resources. I shared them on Twitter with both of you. All said I shared Books to Grow as well as the resources that you shared, Kate. So I'm going to go back to Kate for question 3. So how can you determine the effectiveness of personalized literacy instruction? And then Daniel, I'll go to you next after that.
Yeah.
So how do you determine that?
Well, that's a good question, because you always want to make sure that what you're doing is effective, that you're not just throwing these resources out there to the kids and they're not improving the reading. So one thing I like to do is with the News ELA articles that I talked about, looking at their responses to the questions that go along with the articles, judging how well they've done those, having a conversation with them, seeing if they can summarize what they read, pick out details, pick out maybe some supporting evidence and talk about the way the paragraphs are structured. And then, as you're just having that informal conversation with a student, then you can see how well they're comprehending that level. And then if you can move up a level, then, try that and then go from there. Also, I think just by their willingness to read it and their excitement to read it, that reading the articles out loud was more interesting for some of my kids than to have them read it on their own. So playing around with the different methods of delivering the material as well.
All right, great point. And that was mentioned by Susie today in the EduMatch Voxer group about how to find that balance between having students read independently as well as having them read with the teacher. So great. All right. And Daniel, how about you? How do you how do you determine the effectiveness of personalized literacy instruction?
That's a really good question. I think that first I'll say what I'd like to see people not do. I think there's been such an over reliance on testing and testing and testing, and so oftentimes it's easy to say, let me default to the multiple choice questions, and oftentimes students can guess the questions, or if you ask them for details, they can recall details without really having a deeper understanding of the reading. And just to kind of go highlight kind of what Kate said, I think she made a good point about talking with the students about the text and getting them helping them go deeper and find deeper meaning in the text. And so something that we started to do is focus more narrowly on annotation, and using annotation as a way to really understand what the students are thinking about the text, but to also model critical thinking. And if I may, I'm actually going to screen share one more time. Something recent we've done with Books That Grow. Now, when you highlight a piece of text, rather than just turning it yellow, we now have an annotation bar come up. And so we want to help teachers apply the discipline of reading apprenticeship, where you model active reading and critical thinking for the students. So when the student highlights a text, this bar will come up and they can apply a number of tags. They can say, this is foreshadowing. And when they go back and look at their notes, see, for example, the different highlights, the different tags they apply: foreshadowing, symbolism, character development, plot development. If they are reading a nonfiction text, instead of seeing the annotation bar saying conflict, foreshadowing, character development, it would say things like main idea, claim, counterclaim. So really prodding the students to think deeply about the text. So how does the teacher know that the student is getting it? When the teacher can view the student annotations and they can see how the student is actually conversating with the text, that's when they can actually see, is this student getting it? So that's what we want to focus on, is how do you look into the student's thinking about the text? And I think that is the new measure of success that people need to rise to now as we move beyond just multiple choice, really focusing on their critical thinking, and if need be, modeling that critical thinking for them. And going back to what Kate said, the group discussions can also be great for that as well, to get kids inspired to talk about what they're reading and start to share those ideas with one another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, could I say a few more things, Sarah? So a few things that Daniel brought up that I wanted to just jump on as well. Having that group discussion is good because, some kids will pick out different things, so that'll bring them a more comprehensive package of what they're reading. And also with that modeling of the skills, like not only are we doing it as instructors, but the kids can model that for each other, balancing or looking at the different levels of in the classroom. They can be modeling things for each other. And then another thing about the getting away from the multiple choice and like really looking at a good measure of their comprehension, I guess, that goes to a larger discussion of how do you, I don't want to say grade that, but how do you show that everybody is learning? You know what I mean? Like going back to why we have standardized testing and why there's multiple choice and things like that, like going from that to a more authentic scale or rubric of showing that the kids are progressing. Like, is there a way to standardize that almost? Or is that more of like a personalized rubric or personalized growth scale for that child? What do you guys think?
I think it's important for the teacher to have some agency. I think there are, yes, I think standardized measures are also very important, but then there's just the art of being a teacher and kind of understanding, where Johnny started and where Johnny's headed and what you think his personal best, could be. I think there should be room for both in the assessment of students, for using standardized measures, but also relying upon the judgment of the teacher.
Great points. Great discussion that you all are having. So I love that as well. The data doesn't just have to be hard numbers, with the standardized tests, as y'all are saying, that there's multiple ways to look at growth and to look at progress. So absolutely, definitely co-sign that. All right, so we have time for about maybe one more question. So can educators utilize this practice at home? So let me see. Let me go first to Daniel on this one. In what ways can educators utilize this at home?
You mean when you say at home, you mean like at home with their families, or
Sorry, with their students, like for their students. So is it possible, like for example, to assign like maybe reading some? Is it possible to assign it as home practice?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think that I think there's so many things that teachers can do to kind of step aside from just the, hey, you read a book, or the drill and kill. I would say just start with Socratic seminars. Google Socratic seminar. Great method for teachers to use in terms of differentiating. Many of the resources that Kate and I spoke about, not just Books That Grow, but others are there. And so with ours, for example, you can find differentiated content across genres. That's what makes us unique. You'll find fiction, nonfiction, science. But yeah, with the number of mechanisms you can use to find text that you can assign to all of your students. And then once you use one of these systems to help with the differentiation, whether it be Books That Grow or something else, then as a teacher, you can step back and focus on curating the discussion, knowing that all your students will be engaged. I highly recommend focusing on annotation, getting the students writing about the text, really think about the text, and then look at their reasoning, look at their thought processes, and talk to them about it, and get the students talking to each other about it, so that you could also use a flip model where the students read at home and come back to class and have a more engaging discussion. So I think it's really easy to get started.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what about you, Kate?
Well, as you guys were talking, I was thinking about different digital ways that the kids can check in while they're at home. For it to be different, so you're not just saying, okay, go home and read a chapter or find a news article, something like that, where maybe like with your Books That Grow, they can read it. If it works on a device, they can read that on a device. They can find different apps on their devices as well. You could use, I don't remember what it's called now, or like a class Twitter where they can sign in and have like a little online discussion with some of their classmates and the teacher later on that night, and that would be their homework to talk about linking the text to something that they've seen on TV or something that's going on at home or in their community or in the news, so they can build that way. So I was thinking about just the different digital ways that you can connect at home, so it's a little different for them. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Great tips from the both of you. So do y'all have any closing thoughts that you would like to share? So I'll go back to Kate and then to Daniel. Any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Closing thoughts about literacy. Just keep reading, keep focusing on literacy. It's so important. And I think kids these days and a lot of other people these days don't really stress the importance of it, but like math and reading, that's what's going to get you through life. If those are the only two things that you had to know, you should know them, and you can manage everything else.
All right, great. And how about you, Daniel?
Oh, I think he's on mute.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So I just wanted to say that all students can learn and grow if you simply give them a chance. But giving them a chance doesn't mean giving them things that you think are at their level. It's also giving them a chance to take on rigor and to struggle, but to also be supported along the way and ultimately to surprise themselves. And so inclusion is what we believe in. Inclusion is what we stand for. And you can learn more about us at www.booksthatgrow.com. And I'm very happy to have been a part of this discussion.
Great. Well, definitely very happy to have spoken with both of you. Thank you so much for having joined us tonight. And also wanted to thank everyone who is tweeting with us, everyone who is following along. So the Twitter transcript will be available in about 4 minutes. And the audio to this podcast will be available on iTunes within the coming weeks. So come back at 7 p.m. We're going to have a discussion on digital learning spaces. It's going to be a great discussion. Next week we will be off, and the following week will be off for the holidays. So we have a doubleheader tonight to hold you over for the next 2 weeks. And after that, then we're going to be talking about movement in the classroom, and that's going to be moderated by Justin Schleider. So definitely check that out on December the 4th. Anyone can be a panelist. You can just sign up at tinyurl.com/edumatch sign up. So definitely wanted to give a shout out to EdCamp New Jersey, where I will be this Saturday. Really looking forward to that. Also to friends at Altera Consulting, who are helping teachers to travel, so helping to facilitate that and authentic professional learning experiences in other countries. So definitely check them out. So you can subscribe at bit.ly/EduMatch podcast, all lowercase letters. So thank you again, everyone, and have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.